Welcome to this video on the nervous system, covering medical terminology, diseases, and surgical procedures related to this vital system. Neurology and neurosurgery deal with the nervous system, which coordinates conscious and involuntary activities through over 100 billion nerve cells. Our approach to studying the nervous system will cover the organ system, specific organs, causes of disease, symptoms, investigations, and medical and surgical treatments. Common signs and symptoms of nervous system disorders include various headaches, pain, stiffness, abnormal sensations like paresthesia, weakness, memory loss, paralysis, seizures, and loss of coordination or consciousness. The nervous system is divided into the central nervous system, including the brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system, which includes ganglia and nerves. The nervous system has three main functions: sensory function, which monitors changes called stimuli; motor function, which sends information to effectors for response; and integrative function, which processes sensory input and makes decisions. The basic functional unit of the nervous system is the neuron. Neurons vary in structure and include a cell body and cell processes. White matter consists of myelinated axons, and gray matter contains unmyelinated axons and cell bodies. Neurotransmitters are chemical messengers that carry signals between neurons and other cells. Key neurotransmitters include adrenaline, GABA, noradrenaline, acetylcholine, dopamine, glutamate, serotonin, and endorphins, each with distinct functions. The nervous system has two major components: the central nervous system, or CNS, which is the brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system, or PNS, which is the network of nerves leading in and out of the CNS. The nervous system hierarchy includes the CNS and PNS. The PNS further divides into the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system, which controls the sympathetic, or fight or flight, and parasympathetic, or rest and digest, responses. This image highlights the connection between the central nervous system, including the brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system, showing the major nerves and ganglia. The meninges protect the brain and spinal cord. They consist of three layers: the tough outer dura mater, the middle arachnoid membrane, and the innermost pia mater. The arachnoid and pia mater are also called leptomeninges. The meninges protect the brain and spinal cord. The arrows in the diagram illustrate the flow of cerebrospinal fluid, which circulates within these protective layers. The brain, or cerebrum, is located within the cranial cavity. It weighs about 3 pounds and is composed primarily of water, lipids, protein, and other organic and inorganic substances. The brain is divided into lobes such as the frontal, parietal, occipital, and temporal lobes, each responsible for different functions like problem-solving, sensation, vision, and hearing. The brain stem controls basic survival mechanisms. This slide provides a lateral view of the 4 brain lobes: the pons, medulla oblongata, cerebellum, and spinal cord, along with a sagittal section detailing important internal brain structures like the thalamus and hypothalamus. The spinal cord is nervous tissue extending from the brain down to the second lumbar vertebra, ending in the cauda equina. It carries nerves to and from the body's limbs and lower parts, protected by the vertebral column and meninges. Cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF, is clear and colorless, circulating within the ventricles of the brain. The table shows the normal composition of CSF, including typical levels of protein, glucose, and electrolytes. The peripheral nervous system consists of nerves that extend from the CNS to the rest of the body. This includes both cranial nerves, originating from the brain, and spinal nerves, originating from the spinal cord. Cranial nerves primarily carry impulses between the brain and the head and neck. The exception is the 10th cranial nerve, the vagus nerve, which also carries messages to and from the neck, chest, and abdomen. This image highlights the 12 pairs of cranial nerves and their corresponding functions, illustrating their paths to various organs and structures throughout the body. Spinal nerves carry messages between the spinal cord and the chest, abdomen, and extremities. The images illustrate the spinal nerves and their connections throughout the body's dermatomes and muscle groups. The autonomic nervous system, or ANS, regulates involuntary functions like heart rate and digestion. It is divided into the sympathetic nervous system for fight or flight responses and the parasympathetic nervous system for rest and digest activities. Signs and symptoms of nervous system disorders span a range, from headaches and pain to memory loss, paralysis, involuntary movements, seizures, and loss of consciousness, often managed by a neurologist. Moving on to investigations, The following slides will detail various diagnostic tests used to evaluate the nervous system. Radiological tests for the nervous system include X-rays and CT scans, which provide structural images. Magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI, offers detailed evaluation of brain tissue, and Doppler ultrasound studies assess blood flow in arteries like the carotid. Other tests include electroencephalography, or EEG, which records the electrical activity of the brain. The EEG is vital for demonstrating seizure activity related to brain tumors, diseases, or injury. Laboratory tests for the nervous system include cerebrospinal fluid analysis, often obtained through a lumbar puncture. This procedure involves sampling CSF for diagnostic purposes, such as identifying infection or disease. A lumbar puncture, commonly performed between the third and fourth lumbar vertebrae, allows for the collection of cerebrospinal fluid to diagnose nervous system conditions. The next segment of this video will focus on the various diseases and conditions that affect the nervous system. We begin with infectious disorders, including meningitis, encephalitis, myelitis, neuritis, and herpes zoster, also known as shingles. Next are neoplastic disorders, involving abnormal growths of brain tissue, spinal cord, and meninges. These can be benign or malignant neoplasms. Myelopathy refers to an injury or disease of the spinal cord, often caused by severe compression from conditions like spinal stenosis or disc herniation. Peripheral neuropathy affects the nerves outside the brain and spinal cord, often resulting in numbness, weakness, and pain, primarily in the hands and feet. Migraines are severe, recurring, and unilateral vascular headaches that can be debilitating for many individuals. Epilepsy is a convulsive disorder characterized by recurrent seizures or fits due to abnormal electrical activity in the brain. Vascular disorders include cerebrovascular accidents or strokes, which can be thrombotic, embolic, or hemorrhagic in nature. Traumatic disorders involve injuries to the brain, such as cerebral concussion, a traumatic brain injury from a blow to the head, and cerebral contusion, which is bruising of the brain tissue. Multiple sclerosis is the destruction of the myelin sheath in the central nervous system. Myasthenia gravis is an autoimmune disorder causing weakness in voluntary muscles. Parkinson's disease is a progressive disorder of the nervous system that affects movement, often causing tremors and rigidity. Paralysis can manifest in different forms. These include hemiplegia, paraplegia, monoplegia, and quadriplegia, depending on the affected body regions. Cerebral palsy is a group of permanent movement disorders that appear in early childhood and impact motor function. Bell palsy is the paralysis of one side of the face, often caused by a viral infection leading to nerve swelling. Treatment involves antiviral drugs and managing the swelling. Hydrocephalus is a condition characterized by the accumulation of cerebrospinal fluid in the brain, often requiring intervention like shunt surgery. This concludes our video session on the nervous system. Thank you for watching.